Hey guys, it's Mark from Periphery and you're watching Fretswell. First of all, our set starts with 7-string songs. So those songs are tuned to drop A flat, which is everything is a half step down, and then the 7-string is an additional whole step down, so it's a drop tuning. And the first 4 songs of the set are in that tuning, and then we switch to 6-string songs. This is where I bust out this thing. And this is currently tuned to drop A, what I call drop A. So everything is a whole step down, and then this 6-string is tuned a step and a half down to A. So what you get is the ability to do octaves in a power chord shape. It's a pretty cool, fun tuning to mess around with and write in. So we do that for 3 songs, and then we switch to 8-string songs, which I use a Mayonis Setius, a custom Mayonis Setius for those. And we play 2 of those songs, and then we go back to a 6-string, which I was talking about earlier. We go to Scarlet, which is tuned to open C, add 9. We have too many tunings. No, it's not. We have too many tunings, and I always say, people always comment, it must be fun to play so many tunings. It's not. To remember all the tunings, and every time you play in a new tuning, your list of tricks to go back to gets shorter and shorter and shorter, because it's just, you got to re-acclimate yourself to tunings all the time. But after that song, we go back to 7-string songs, which are tuned to F sharp. So yeah, it's quite a bit of tunings, and this is nothing compared to previous tours. The Axe Effects is one thing that ties all of us together in the band. Bass player, all 3 guitar players, we all use the fractal, and that runs to Zilla cabs, which provide stage sound for us, with a QSC power amp in between to power the cabs. All of those run also direct front of house, so we're not micing the cabs or anything like that. In the first couple of years I was in this band, we just ran Axe Effects straight to front of house, which is cool because it allowed for a very simple setup. And what our front of house guy, Alex Marquides, liked about it was there were no variables. You didn't have to mic anything every night, and what came out of the Axe Effects was what went to front of house, and that's what we got for live sound. What the bummer about that was for the people in the front of the room, right in front of the stage. They're in front watching us, and they're going crazy. They've been waiting in line to see us, and they're getting squashed. But what they don't get is the sound on their left and right sides pouring out to the people behind them. They can't hear anything but drums, and Spencer yelling at them from 4 feet away. So we got the idea a couple tours ago to bring back the cabs, only for stage sound. We don't even crank them that loud. We don't mic them. We keep them only audible enough to have the people in the front hear them. Another thing which we touched on earlier was having the power, and I'm not talking about an audible power that you feel, that you hear playing on stage. It's the feel. It's having the air from a cab sort of hit you, and there's something really refreshing about that. I remember a couple years ago when we first switched to in-ears and struck the cabs and struck floor wedges. I remember feeling so clinical and feeling so under a microscope that all the vibe and energy was sucked out of a live performance for the first while. It was a very humbling thing as well, because I could also hear all of my mistakes and all the mistakes of my band members. But as soon as we got over that, it made me a better player. But I have to say, bringing back the cabs really made it come full circle, and now we have a balance of the 2. People in the front are happy. The stage sounds better, so if you watch the side stage, the sound is way better. It's a lot more full. And again, it adds that element of vibe and energy back to our live set again. You'll notice also that we don't use pedal boards on stage. Our patch changes are powered by our MacBook Pro, which we have triggered via MIDI changes in Pro Tools, which runs off a click that's sent to our drummer. So it's quite an elaborate process, but one that makes our life pretty easy once tour starts. We're not tap dancing, we're not doing anything like that. Of course, we do have to spend time programming the patch changes before a tour starts, which consists of manually going into Pro Tools and by hand punching in every single Axe Effects preset change that you want. So it's a laborious process, but one that affects the way we play live and also write. It affects the way we create music in the studio now, because we know we have these tools that allow us to change through all these different presets and cycle through them very fast without having to tap dance. For instance, there's a part in the song Masamune, the last song on Periphery 2. There's that big heavy breakdown section. That dun, 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 dun. We couldn't play that with the pedal board. You'd have to sit there and switch it off every time you wanted that stutter patch to kick off. The stutter patch is that stuttery sound that we have in that riff. That's an actual Axe-Fx preset that we developed. But it's an example of the Axe-Fx influencing the way we create, and it's a pretty cool evolution of how we've been using it. And yeah, I mean, that piece of gear is invaluable to us. It's become synonymous with how we create music and how we perform. No, but it is great to have hundreds of presets and patches in one box, and there's no compromise in tone anymore. I remember when I was growing up trying out different amp simulation and trying out different effects processors, there would always be some sort of trade-off that you'd have to be willing to make to use that kind of gear. But with this, there's no difference. There's no difference for me at all, and I don't miss the amp search anymore. I have it all here, and I will never go back. So for our live intermixes, we use a Behringer X32 mixer, which we all control with iPads and iPhones. So there's no actual physical interface that we use. We're all just controlling on an iPad before a set, which we normally have dialed in at soundcheck. I like to have myself panned to the center. I have Misha in my left, Jake in my right, Spencer, our singer, a little bit in the middle. I like to have a lot of Nolly in the mix, our bassist. Our bass sounds very powerful and full live. I think a lot more so than other metal bands. We like to have it very present, and I love that in my in-ear mix. And of course, a pretty even drum mix across the board, and a little bit of tracks. But as you can see, it's the whole sonic picture. We try to include as much as possible. And for me, I can tell you the big turning point in terms of me improving as a musician on stage, having the click track really helped live. Having the click really helped me lock in and tell when I was playing tightly, or if I heard something weird going on with another instrument in the band. You know, we have a very open door policy in this band. If you hear something, you know, a little bit messy going on, you can go and tell the other person. So it helped give us a very accurate description of what exactly was happening at all times in a mix. I use Jim Dunlop picks .88 millimeter Tortex Jazz 3 shape, which I love. Always had that perfect balance of being able to grip really hard and have the power to strike a string, but also you don't want too much thickness. I like to strike through strings and get that real sort of percussive way through the strings. But for strings, I currently am set up with 11 through 56 D'Addarios, and these have been my live set for a while. I used to use 10 to 52, and actually on my signature model they come 10 to 52 shipped from the factory, because that's my studio gauge. I like to play with lighter strings in the studio. Just feels a lot more effortless and brighter in a way that I find to be very desirable. About 4 or 5 months ago, I was in contact with Keith Merrow. And he and I like to dork out about music and send songs back and forth. We talk about tone and gear a lot. He's a great friend of mine, and also very similar tastes to what I like in terms of tone and music and everything really. But he said, hey, come out to the Seymour Duncan factory and let's build some pickups for fun. And so I did. I'd never done that kind of thing before. I flew out to California and we spent 4 days really just sitting in a room with this guitar, in fact, this exact prototype, and Axe-Fx, and we just started picking apart pickups. We'd have a pickup set ready in the morning for us to test out. We'd test it out, we'd try these different presets, we'd pass the guitar back and forth, we'd tell each other our honest thoughts on the pickup set, write them down, bring them upstairs, and go communicate our thoughts to Kevin Beller, the main builder there. And then he would build us another pickup set and he'd have it ready in an hour. And that was what our day was like. And it was really, really enriching and fulfilling. I'd never thought that way about pickups before and never really dedicated that much of my life in one bulk period of time to just examining nuances and dislikes and things that I liked about a pickup. And it was very cool because I started to find out things about my tastes in tone and pickups that I didn't know. And I got to find out a lot about that kind of thing, and yeah, by the second day we really started to get some insane sounding pickups. But again, since we knew we had this big chunk of time dedicated to it, we never stopped. We always went until we found everything that we liked in terms of quality. So what came out is the Duncan Alpha and Omega. It originally was a set that we were building for fun, just so he and I could have a cool pickup set to jam on and to riff on, but we got the idea to making a signature set once we knew this was going to be a production model PRS. So why not go that route with the set? So, and also it made a lot of sense to share it because I know a lot of players may have the same tonal desires that I have and that Keith has. So it just made a lot of sense from that standpoint. Whew, where do I even start? Juggernaut's been an idea that we've kicked around for years and years and years. Even before it materialized into what we know it now as a big concept album. We always knew we wanted it to be a concept record, but not quite this, not quite a double album with an overarching narrative, and it's just evolved so much. I remember shortly after Periphery 2 came out, we all got together and we said to each other, what do we want Juggernaut to be? How do we want it to sound? And so we wrote down a list of adjectives of what we wanted the records to sound like. And those adjectives were dark, cinematic, negative. You know, we wanted to be sort of a reaction to Periphery 2. Periphery 2 was upbeat in a lot of ways and is very playful and is busy. Juggernaut, we wanted to be more moody and more brooding and intimidating sounding and just sound bigger and more epic. And that, supported by the narrative, I think really helped us get into the mindset to do it. That combined with how we wrote it, which was done in a very collaborative nature. We took off the first 3 or 4 months of 2014 to write the albums. So me, Jake, and Misha, we got in a room and we churned out 20 plus songs or something in that time, and it was a really fun process. It was the first time actually in our band's process that we've collaborated in such a respect. As soon as me, Jake, and Misha would finish a song or finish an idea, it didn't even have to be a full song, but we'd send it out to the guys and see what they'd think, and then they'd give their feedback, and then we would run with it and keep going. So it was a very, very collaborative process in every single way, and one that we'd never fully tried before. And once we finished the writing process instrumentally, then it came time for Spencer to flesh out the rest of the story, which fully belonged to him. He was inspired by some events in his life, I think, and some other pieces of media that he was really influenced by. And that sort of materialized into the full Juggernaut narrative, which paired with the story quite well. And then came the long process of pairing the lyrics and narrative with the music. Normally with us, we would just put out songs for fun and songs that were fun for us to play and put them on a record. And as long as the record flowed well, then all's good. With this, we had to make sure that the songs actually fit the vibe of what was happening in the story. For instance, you can't have a thrash song or this crazy doom song with pretty lyrics and there's something positive happening in the story. You can't do that. So we had to make sure that every single element worked well, and that took quite a bit of time. Yeah. So this was all before the recording process of the album.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Is this bothering you guys?
How's it up there?
Yeah, you can.